Welcome back to Storyality. It's like Cliff's Notes for fighting games. Today we're addressing Tekken 4, although I should point out that I've now skipped a game, and I plan to skip another. The game in question is Tekken Tag Team, which came out between 3 and 4, and the reason I'm skipping it, and its eventual sequel, is pretty simple. They don't exist in canon. They aren't part of the story. They are their own little side project, and we're here to talk about the story of Tekken. These games were released in order to let players use all of the characters from the previous games in fighting each other, kind of like Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Maybe I'll address their story later on, if it turns out that they have one, but for now I'd like to continue with the actual Tekken story. So let's get into Tekken 4. 2 years after Tekken 3, Heihachi has had a team of scientists working with Ogre's remains and trying to find a way to grant Heihachi some of Ogre's amazing abilities. The scientists have determined that the only way to graft Ogre's DNA to Heihachi's would be the use of the Devil Gene, which Heihachi doesn't have. Jin, the only person we know is alive with the Devil Gene, has been missing since Heihachi tried to kill him at the end of the last tournament. Then, Heihachi has a bit of luck, and finds out that a company called G Corporation has found his son Kazuya's corpse. Remember Kazuya? He has the Devil Gene, which he passed on to his son Jin before Heihachi threw him into a volcano. Well, somehow his corpse, though burnt to a crisp, was found by G Corporation, and they've been performing genetic experiments on it. It's quickly revealed that G Corporation has actually managed to revive Kazuya, who is using their resources to study his Devil Gene so that he can unlock its full power and destroy his father Heihachi once and for all. Heihachi wants to lure Kazuya out not only so that he can kill him, but so that he can also get a hold of Kazuya's Devil Gene for his Ogre project. So he announces the 4th Tekken tournament, offering the winner complete control of his company, the Mishima Zaibatsu. Kazuya knows it's a trick, but he enters anyway. Now let's meet our returning characters. Obviously returning is Kazuya Mishima after being absent from the last game. We've mostly covered his story, but in addition he orders Heihachi to tell him where Jin, his son, is if he wears the tournament. Surprisingly, even though it's part of the story that Heihachi doesn't know where Jin is, at this point, he does. Next is Hwarang, Jin's young rival. He spent the last 2 years as a draftee in the Korean army, a good soldier, but headstrong. When the 4th tournament is announced, he goes to enter in hopes of finally being able to beat Jin. Next is King, and just as a quick reminder, this is in fact King 2, who took the mantle of King after the original King died. King's mentor, Armor King, was killed by a man named Craig Marduk in a barroom brawl. Craig was sentenced to prison for his crime. King actually bribed prison officials to get Craig released from prison early, and sent him tickets to the Tekken 4 tournament so that he could finally get his hands on the man who murdered his mentor. Next is Ling Xiaoyu, our typical Japanese schoolgirl. She's been living as a ward of the Mishima Zaibatsu, but has begun to suspect that the evil world-dominating company might be evil. So she enters the tournament to seek out answers. Her backstory is actually identical to the new unlockable character of Mihiro Hirano, who is also a Japanese schoolgirl. Mihiro acts as a costume swap of Ling, despite the two of them appearing as separate characters in their ending. Next up is Martial Law, our Bruce Lee tribute. He's back for this game despite his son taking his place in the previous game. When his hugely successful fast food restaurant failed, which makes me question how hugely successful it was, Marshall spent a year living in the bottle. When he saw the announcement for the 4th Tekken tournament, he decided to train harder than ever, as winning the tournament would give his life some meaning again. Next is Paul Phoenix. In an interesting bit of retroactive continuity, we learn that Paul actually defeated Ogre in the previous tournament, and then went home, thinking himself the winner. He left before Ogre transformed into his final form of True Ogre, and he didn't know that the tournament continued until Jin beat True Ogre. Needless to say, nobody was impressed with him saying he won a tournament that he didn't even stick around until the ending of. So once again, Paul is entering the Tekken tournament to prove he's the best fighter in the world, who just happens to have a really bad sense of timing. Next is Yoshimitsu. Being the head of a Robin Hood clan of ninjas, Yoshimitsu is worried because they are running out of money to help everybody who needs it, so he decides to enter the tournament so that he can use the Mishima Zaibatsu's wealth to continue helping the needy. And now for our unlockable returning characters. Like the previous games, unlockable characters are unlocked by beating story mode a certain number of times. 4 times you unlock one character, 5 times you unlock another, and so on. Starting with Brian Fury, our undead cyborg. Brian has realized that his body is starting to break down and his demise is imminent. The only person who can save him is his creator, Dr. Abel, who now works for the Mishima Zaibatsu and wants nothing to do with Brian. Brian enters the tournament because he figures if he wins, Dr. Abel will have to repair him. Next is Lee Chaolin. Lee was Heihachi's adopted son, but during the second tournament, Lee betrayed Heihachi and backed up Kazuya, who ultimately lost. As a result, Lee was kicked out of the Mishima Zaibatsu and has spent the 20 years since relaxing on a private beach. But when the 4th tournament is announced, he can't resist the opportunity to control the company that should have been his by right of adoption. So he disguises himself as a man called Violet and enters the tournament. Violet is sometimes referred to as a separate character in the Tekken universe, but it's important to remember that it's really just Lee Chaolin in disguise. Next we have the legendary Jin Kazama, son of Kazuya, grandson of Heihachi, and winner of the last tournament. Angry at his grandfather's betrayal at the end of the last tournament, Jin has been training in secret with just one thought on his mind: to destroy his grandfather and anyone who might stand in his way. The 4th Tekken tournament is his perfect opportunity for revenge. Next is Lei Wulong, the Hong Kong super cop. Lei is apparently a workaholic, which led to his girlfriend leaving him, which led to him messing up an important case he was working on, which led to him getting suspended from his job. All caused because he was working at his job too hard. It's a little ironic. The case he bungled was against a massive crime syndicate. When he learned that this crime syndicate had hired an assassin to kill a participant in the 4th Tekken tournament, Lee saw this as his chance to make things right. Next is Julia Chang. She's had quite a lot happen to her, so I'm going to give you a lot of information very fast. In her college studies, she realizes that damage to the environment was going to cause her hometown to eventually be taken over by a growing desert. She joins G Corporation to find a way to combat the environmental damage and succeeds. She's mere weeks away from being able to use G Corporation's resources to undo all the damage when G Corporation and the Mishima Zaibatsu go to war with each other over Kazuya's resurrected body. Having lost all her research in the ensuing company war, she joins the tournament in hopes that she can use Mishima Zaibatsu's resources to finish saving her hometown. Next is Kuma 2, the return of the son of the bear. Having lost to Paul Phoenix, just like his father, Kuma realizes his time as Heihachi's pet has made him too domesticated, so returns to the wilderness to train. He travels to a nearby town from time to time to watch TV, because what bear doesn't love TV? That's when he sees the announcement for the 4th Tekken tournament. He knows Paul will be there, and so he joins for revenge. Next is Nina Williams, the assassin, showing up without her sister for the first time. Nina is still suffering from cryosleep-induced amnesia, but has spent the last couple years working as an assassin. When she's hired by a crime syndicate to assassinate a boxer named Steve Fox, she discovers he's going to be participating in the Tekken tournament, so she joins to take him down. Next is Panda, the literal panda, who is a pet to schoolgirl Ling. She doesn't have much of a backstory in this game, just that she kinda misses having Kuma 2 chase her around, even though she wasn't really interested. The last of our returning characters is Heihachi Mishima, who is our final boss yet again. And just like Kazuya, his backstory has been almost completely covered at the beginning of this video. I'll just add that in the course of tracking down Kazuya, his company did a great deal of damage to various G Corporation locations. It was basically a war between the two companies. And now it's time for the new warriors. First is Christy Montero. Christy is actually the granddaughter of the man who taught Eddie Gordo the dance combat art of capoeira in the last game. In fact, Eddie Gordo is available as a costume swap of Christy in this game, but without any unique backstory or ending. Eddie has spent the last 2 years teaching Christy everything her grandfather had taught him, and then disappeared mysteriously. Christy joins the tournament to find out what happened to Eddie. Next is Craig Marduk, the man who killed Armor King. Craig was a Veil Tudo champion until he was expelled from the sport for a minor scandal. Veil Tudo is basically an early Brazilian form of MMA fighting, mixed martial arts. After killing Armor King in a barroom brawl, he was sent to jail. When he was released early, he found himself with a ticket to join the Tekken tournament, so he went. Because he likes to fight. Next is Steve Fox, a boxer. Steve has spent his entire life trying to figure out who his biological parents were, and, boxing. When he failed to throw a fight, the Mafia put a price on his head. Steve fled the country, but couldn't resist the limelight, so when the 4th Tekken tournament was announced, he simply had to join, even if that meant the Mafia would know where he was. Our final character is an unlockable new character, Combot. Because this is the only Tekken game without a Jack character, we had to get some kind of robot up in here. Combot was actually created by Lee Chaolin when he was living in seclusion on his private beach. He's programmed to do household chores, and to mimic the fighting styles of anyone it encounters, because of course. Now, the way endings are presented have changed in this game. Endings now start with a screen of text and then a follow-up video, all of which contain voice acting. Kazuya Mishima's ending shows when Heihachi takes Kazuya to the secret meeting place that Gen is hiding. The devil inside Kazuya is eager to take the devil gene back from Gen, making himself stronger. Kazuya succeeds and walks away in full devil form. Hwoarang's ending shows him finding Gen after the tournament, finally being able to challenge him to a street fight, when the South Korean army officials show up to arrest Hwoarang for going AWOL to attend the tournament. He and Gen fight them off together before fleeing. Hwoarang determines that they'll get their chance to fight at the next tournament. King's ending shows King putting Craig in the hospital. King then visits him with the intention of killing him, but upon seeing a picture of Craig with his elderly parents, decides that revenge is not the answer, and walks away. Ling Jiayu and Mihiro Murano shows Ling now in charge of the Mishima Zaibatsu. She offers her friend Mihiro a job for the company and says she's going to use the company to make everybody's dreams come true, starting with the construction of a super large amusement park. Martial law shows him using the vast fortunes of the Mishima Zaibatsu to rebuild his fast food empire. When he hears one patron talking about how the food sucks, Martial beats him up and then returns to training students in his private dojo. Paul Phoenix shows him being a bit of a playboy, until he sees an old picture of himself hanging in Martial Law's dojo. He then decides to abandon the showboat persona he's acquired and dedicate himself to fighting once again. Yoshimitsu's ending shows Heihachi refusing to hand the company over to Yoshimitsu despite winning. Heihachi is prepared to fight, but Yoshimitsu was also prepared, and had his ninjas already steal the company's money vault before escaping. Brian Fury's ending shows Brian waking up to realize that Dr. Abel's rival, Dr. Boskanovich, has saved him, with the help of Yoshimitsu. Dr. Boskanovich offers to put Brian in a brand new body, to extend his longevity, if Brian will let the Mad Doctor play around with his old body afterwards. Brian agrees. Lee Chaolin and Violet's ending shows Lee in charge of the Mishima Zaibatsu. He's using the vast resources to create a new generation of fighting robots, and he's using Heihachi as a test dummy for them to build up their skills. Lei Wulong shows him using the Mishima Zaibatsu's resources to track down the assassin Nina. Nina is able to escape with the help of Steve Fox, but Lee is able to injure her before she completely goes away. Now, Lee, Nina, and Steve Fox all have the same ending, but depending on who you see it with, determines how much of the ending you see. Lee gets the least amount of information. Julia Chang shows her finding all the information she needed in Mishima Zaibatsu's data center, but she also uncovered Dr. Abel's devil gene research, which she sees as the possible end of all mankind, so she deletes the data. Kuma 2 shows that after defeating Paul, Kuma decided that it was time to try his luck at corporate management. Heihachi tries to sneak a page into the contract that will actually give him control back of the company, but Kuma does not fall for it because he's smarter than the average bear. Nina's ending shows that before she's able to kill Steve, she actually learns that he's her son. Apparently, while she was in cryosleep, Dr. Boskanovich performed an in vitro fertilization experiment on her, and Steve was the result. Learning this, she's completely unable to kill her son. That's when Lee's ending kicks in from before. The super cop shows up, Steve helps his mom escape, and we'll ignore how she's able to give birth in cryosleep, which prevented her from aging but let an embryo grow, and we'll ignore her having a deep emotional attachment to a son she didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago. Panda's ending shows Ling asking for Panda's help in tracking down Jen, who she believes can help bring peace to the world, but Panda doesn't want to, because she's an endangered species already without fighting Devil Gene people. Ling says they'll always be friends anyway. Heihachi's ending shows Heihachi leading Kazuya to where Jen is kept. He then ambushes and chains up Kazuya too, revealing that the chains he's using drain power away from people with the Devil Gene. Heihachi walks away the winner. And the world came to know an age of darkness. Christie's ending shows her overwhelmed with the tension at winning the tournament, but she still feels empty inside, until she sees Eddie Gordo in the audience and rushes into his arms. Craig's ending shows him meeting the current Vale Tudo champion named Jeff Slater, who he promptly headbutts and warns that he shouldn't try to get up. Steve Fox shows the full version of the Nina, Lee, Steve ending. Steve used the Mishima data archives to find out who his mother was. That's how Nina found out. Then there's several assassins trying to kill Steve. They're stopped by Nina. Then Lee shows up and injures Nina, who escapes. Combot's ending shows Combot falling apart. He was a prototype that had apparently gone as far as he could. Lee, disguised as Violet, finds him broken and lying on the ground. And our canon ending, Gen Kazama. And I find this interesting because it's the first time that I can think of in a fighting game where the canon ending belongs to an unlockable character. His ending shows that Heihachi had used Tekken forces to ambush and kidnap Gen before the final round of the tournament. This is how Heihachi knew where Gen was. Remember earlier where he told Kazuya where Gen was? Gen's ending shows both Heihachi and Kazuya approaching, both hoping to get control of his Devil Gene. He's able to beat both of them, but stops short of killing them, thanks to memories of his mother Jun and her kindness. Gen then flees. Well, that's it for Tekken 4, but the story's far from over. Join us next time for Tekken 5. And hopefully we'll get a little bit more wackiness, which was, I feel, a little light on the ground in this round. I should also point out that this particular game is generally considered to be the low point of the series by fans and critics. So, maybe that's why we didn't get as much wackiness. Hopefully, we'll get that fixed next time. I'll see you then.